There is a quiet, vibrating anxiety that takes hold of you the moment you put your phone down. It's a cold, nagging pressure in your chest that whispers you are falling behind. In the year 2026, we have successfully criminalized the now. We live in a global factory where every second of your existence must be an investment. If you aren't learning, you are decaying. If you aren't earning, you are losing. If you aren't optimizing, you are failing. You have been conditioned to believe that your value as a human being is directly proportional to your output. You are a generation suffering from hustle guilt. You have turned your hobbies into side hustles. You have turned your rest into recovery sessions, designed purely to get you back to the desk. Even your sleep is measured by an algorithm to ensure maximum efficiency for tomorrow's labor. You are no longer a living organism. You are a biological asset in a 24-hour marketplace. The tragedy is that you have forgotten how to breathe without a reason. You feel a deep, existential shame when you sit still, as if doing nothing is a moral stain on your character. But the truth is far more clinical. You aren't working toward a better life. You are running away from the terrifying realization that you don't know who you are when the machine stops. You are terrified of the silence because in the silence, there is no product to hide behind. The law of Wu Wei and the flow of nature. Alan Watts looked at this Western obsession with effort and saw a fundamental misunderstanding of how the universe actually functions. He introduced the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, often translated as non-doing or effortless action. To the modern, hyper-stimulated mind, non-doing sounds like laziness. It sounds like giving up. But Watts argued that Wu Wei is actually the highest form of intelligence. Look at the way a tree grows. Does it hustle? Does it wake up on a Tuesday morning feeling guilty because it hasn't produced enough oxygen? Look at the way the clouds move across the sky or the way your own heart beats in your chest. There is no stress in the stars, yet they move with perfect mathematical precision. Watts pointed out that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. By forcing yourself into a state of constant productivity, you are actually working against the grain of reality. You are trying to push the river. You think that your frantic effort is what makes things happen. But Watts realized that the most important things in your life, your breath, your digestion, your sudden flashes of genius, and your deepest loves, happen precisely when you stop trying. You are exhausted because you are trying to do the universe's job for it. You have become a self-interfering mechanism, tripping over your own feet because you're so focused on how fast you're running. The survival of the lazy. The invisible script of our time has labeled your need for stillness as laziness. But if you look deeper, what we call laziness is actually a biological defense mechanism. Your brain was never designed for the constant, high-frequency noise of the 2026 digital landscape. Shows you are being bombarded with more information in a single morning than your ancestors processed in a decade. Your nervous system is redlining. When you feel unproductive, your body is not failing you. It is trying to save you. It is pulling the emergency brake because the engine is overheating. Watts understood that doing nothing is not a luxury. It is a spiritual and biological requirement for clarity. He observed that a mind that is always busy is a mind that is effectively blind. It is like a radar screen so filled with false positives and noise that it can no longer see the actual targets. By refusing to be unproductive, you have ensured that you will never be truly creative. You have traded your vision for volume. You are producing more than ever, but you are moving toward nothing. The sheep believe that the one who works the most wins. They worship at the altar of the busy, but the high-status outlier knows that the one who knows when to stop is the only one who truly owns his life. The person who can sit in a room for an hour doing nothing is the most dangerous person in the room. Why? Because they cannot be manipulated by the fear of falling behind. They have already arrived. the industrialization of the ego. The final layer of this trap is the industrialization of the ego. We have been taught to view ourselves as projects to be completed. We are told to build our brand, level up, and grind until our identity is synonymous with our professional utility. Watts saw this as a form of self-torture. He argued that you are not a project, you are a happening. When you spend every waking moment being productive, you are treating yourself like a piece of machinery that needs to be maintained. You have lost the gooey, spontaneous joy of being an animal. You are a biological machine that has forgotten how to play. This hustle guilt is the chain that keeps you in the factory long after the lights have gone out. To break this chain, you must develop the courage to be useless. You must reclaim the parts of your life that have no result, no market value, and no ROI. You must learn to dance when there is no music, and to sit still when the world is screaming at you to move. Now, only then do you stop being a part of the machine and start being the whole of the universe. Why silence feels like a threat? We must ask the question that the modern world is too terrified to answer. Why are you so afraid to be still? When you sit in a room without a screen, without a book, and without a task, a specific type of panic begins to rise. It's a cold, existential dread that feels like a vacuum. And most people call this boredom, but the architect knows it is something much deeper. It is the fear of the void. As long as you are doing, you have an identity. You are a worker, a creator, a student, a success. But the moment you stop doing, the labels begin to peel away. In the silence, you are forced to confront the fact that there is no solid self underneath the hustle. You are terrified that if the music of the machine stops, you will simply vanish. Alan Watts observed that our frantic productivity is actually a massive collective distraction mechanism. We are running as fast as we can, not because we want to reach a goal, but because we are terrified of what happens if we stop and have to look at ourselves. We have turned being busy into a shield. We use our to-do lists to protect us from the overwhelming realization of our own mortality and the vast, silent mystery of the universe. To be unproductive is to drop the shield. It is to stand naked in the void and realize that the void is not your enemy. It is your origin. Life as a symphony, not a job. The invisible script has taught you that life is a series of problems to be solved. It tells you that your time is a resource to be managed. And if you aren't producing, you are wasting. Watts countered this with one of his most famous and transformative analogies. Life is not a journey. It is a musical composition. If you go to a concert, do you sit there waiting for the final note? Is the point of the symphony to reach the end of the song? Of course not. The point of the music is the playing while it is happening. You don't succeed at a dance by finishing it quickly or by reaching a specific corner of the room. The success is the dance itself. But in 2026, you have treated your life like a business trip, where the only goal is to arrive at success. You have turned your existence into a grind toward a future that doesn't exist. Watts argued that the highest form of human activity is play, which is any activity that is done for its own sake without a result in mind. When you are unproductive, when you are walking just to walk or thinking just to think, you are finally in harmony with the universe. You are no longer a tool for a future goal, when you are a divine expression of the present moment. The sheep work to live. The outlier realizes that the living is the only work that matters. The muddy water principle. There is a mechanical reason why your best ideas never come to you while you are staring at a spreadsheet. Your conscious, productive mind is like a small flashlight in a dark forest. It is focused, narrow, and incredibly limited. Your unconscious mind, however, is the forest itself. When you are constantly doing, you are forcing the flashlight to stay on. You are exhausting the battery. You are stirring the water of your mind in a frantic attempt to find a solution. but Watts frequently used the muddy water principle. If you want to see through muddy water, you must stop stirring it and let it settle. The most productive thing you can do for your creativity, your mental health, and your long-term success is to be aggressively unproductive. By stepping away, by doing nothing, you allow the sediment of your thoughts to settle. You allow the universal intelligence, the part of you that knows how to grow cells and beat your heart, to solve the problems that your thinking mind is too small to handle. The architect knows that rest is not the absence of work. It is the refining of work. The person who works 14 hours a day is a slave to the noise. The person who works 4 hours and sits in silence for 4 hours is a master of the signal. You are currently drowning in noise because you are too afraid to let the water settle. Breaking the utility trap. We have been conditioned to believe that useless is a slur. But in the world of the outlier, being useless is a form of sovereignty. If you are useful, it means you are a tool for someone else's purpose. You are a cog in a machine, a line in a ledger, a unit of production. The moment you are no longer useful, the machine discards you. Watts suggested that we should strive to be like the old, gnarly tree in a forest. The straight, useful trees are cut down for timber. They are turned into floorboards and fences. But the twisted, useless tree, the one that can't be used for anything, is left alone. It lives for hundreds of years. It becomes a sanctuary for birds. It grows into a magnificent, unique shape that no productive tree could ever achieve. When you have the courage to be unproductive, you are telling the world, I am not a tool. I am not for sale. I am not a resource to be exploited. You are reclaiming your uselessness as your freedom. You are choosing to be the gnarly tree that survives the harvest. The hustle wants you to be a floorboard. The now wants you to be a forest. The power of no result. We have identified the treadmill. We have analyzed the fear of the void. Now we enter the realm of the final execution. In the year 2026, the world is a screaming engine of more. It is a digital storm of 8 billion people all trying to out-hustle, out-produce, and outperform one another. In this environment, the most radical act of rebellion is not working harder. It is sitting still. Alan Watts introduced a concept from Zen Buddhism called shikantaza, which literally means just sitting. Not sitting to meditate, not sitting to reflect, not sitting to manifest success, just sitting. To the modern mind, this sounds like a waste of time. Your internal productivity demon is screaming at you, what is the ROI of this? What is the output? What is the next step? But the architect knows that the moment you require a result for your stillness, you have turned your stillness into another form of work. You have brought the factory into the temple. Watts argued that when you sit without a goal, you are performing the ultimate act of sovereignty. You are proving to your nervous system that you are not a slave to the next. You are signaling to the universe that you have already arrived. You are no longer a consumer of life. You are the conductor of it. The sheep are terrified of a blank calendar. The outlier realizes that a blank calendar is the only place where God can speak. Your hustle guilt is not a personality trait. It is a neurological addiction. Every time you complete a task, every time you check an item off your list, every time you optimize a routine, your brain receives a hit of dopamine. You have been trained to be a productivity junkie. You are addicted to the feeling of being busy, even if that busyness is leading you in circles. Watts understood that the only way to break an addiction is to starve the machine. By having the courage to be unproductive, you are undergoing a spiritual and biological detox. You are forcing your brain to recalibrate its value system. When you sit in the silence, the initial itch to check your phone or do something is the feeling of the machine dying. It is the withdrawal symptom of the invisible script. The architect knows that on the other side of that itch is a profound, terrifying, and beautiful clarity. When the noise of productivity stops, the signal of your intuition begins to amplify. You realize that you don't need to grind to be valuable. You are valuable because you are the consciousness in which the very concept of value exists. You stop being a worker and start being a force of nature. And the art of doing nothing, Wu Wei in action. We must distinguish between laziness and Wu Wei. Laziness is the inability to act. It is a state of stagnation and fear. Wu Wei, the courage to be unproductive, is the ability to act from a state of total stillness. It is the realization that the most powerful move on the chessboard is sometimes to stay exactly where you are. Alan Watts frequently pointed out that the overactive person is usually the most ineffective. They are like a person trying to put out a fire with a fan. They are doing a lot, but they are only making the problem worse. The outlier knows that 90% of what the world calls work is actually just friction. It is the sound of people trying to prove they are busy so they don't have to feel the void. By embracing unproductivity, you are eliminating the friction. You are waiting for the vertical moment, the moment when the path is clear and the action is effortless. Like you are no longer plowing through life, you are sailing it. The sheep are exhausted by their own effort. The architect is energized by his own stillness. He does more in 1 hour of effortless action than the grinder does in a month of hustle. Killing the productivity demon. As we close this excavation, you must undergo the final shift. You must look the productivity demon in the eye and realize it is a ghost. The voice in your head that says you are failing because you sat on a park bench for an hour, that voice is not yours. It is the voice of the global factory. It is the voice of a society that wants to turn your soul into a commodity. You are the sky, the to-do lists, the milestones, the hustle guilt. They are just clouds. They are temporary weather patterns passing through your vast obsidian consciousness. They do not define the sky. They do not limit the sky. Just Alan Watts's final message on the matter was a cosmic decree. You are not a machine. You are a dance. The war with the calendar is over. You have won, not by finishing the tasks, but by realizing that the tasks were never the point. You have stepped off the treadmill and into the eternal now, only to find that the now is the only place where anything ever truly happened. You are no longer preparing to live. You are living. Comment below to seal the final realization. I am not a resource. I am the music. The silence is enough. The architect remains silent. Subscribe to stay centered in the void.